when you see that, when you have like a social media feed or you're engaging with people in larger bodies, you can see very easily that, wow, they can do this. Wow, they can do that. Like, she's a runner. And it just debunks all of those silly myths you've been thinking your whole life, because now you're seeing someone in a larger body do the things that you thought only thin people could do or only muscular people could do. Thin people don't have the market cornered on healthy. It's just what diet culture would have you to believe. But healthy can look different for everybody. So that's probably my biggest tip, is normalize seeing larger bodies just in general, seeing your body in general, and then normalize seeing larger bodies in health settings.
Hey there, I'm Amy Connell. Welcome to Graced Health, the podcast for women who want simple and grace-filled ways to take care of themselves and enjoy a little chocolate as well. I'm a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach who wants you to know your eating, movement, and body don't have to be perfect. You just need to be able to do what you're called to do. And boy, we are digging into that today. I've been very open about my body image struggles in the past, and truthfully, if I'm really honest, I still dip into that every now and then. The more I've learned about health, though, the more convinced I am that one of the reasons for my own and probably for other people's body image struggles is the miseducation about what healthy really is. It's something I addressed in my new book, Your Worthy Body, that comes out in November, but I feel like I really only scratched the surface in that. That's why I'm delighted to have Dr. Lisa Folden on the show today to discuss health at every size. Yes, that's a thing, and it's real. Dr. Lisa, also known as Healthy Fit, PHIT, is a licensed physical therapist, behavior change specialist, and mom-focused health and wellness coach. As a body-positive women's health expert, a health at every size ambassador, private practice owner, and mom of 3. First of all, she's really busy, and also she understands the complex needs of the modern busy woman. Therefore, she considers helping busy moms find their healthy as one of her top priorities. Now, before we get into Dr. Lisa, I want to make sure you have signed up to be notified when my book, Your Worthy Body, Find Freedom and Health by Breaking All the Rules, is released. When you do, I'll send you 3 things just as a thank you for signing up. And when you sign up, all you're doing is asking to be notified. There's no pressure, no commitment to buy it. I'm just letting you know. But what I will send you is a recipe bundle of my family's favorite protein-powered breakfast, which includes the energy balls that every time I make and give to my kids' friends, they are a huge hit. It also includes a 5-minute wake up and warm up movement video. It's designed to very gently get your body ready for the day. It's so gentle, you can do it in your pajamas. And a 14-day health and body image devotional. Go to yourworthybody.com. There's no W's in front of it. Sign up and I will send all of those to you and let you know when the book is released. Okay, let's bring on Dr. Lisa. Dr. Lisa, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm super excited for this conversation. But one of the things that I am curious to know is what drew you to physical therapy? Because one thing that I have learned about myself is maybe the finance degree I got. Maybe it was good at the time, but I think that if I were redoing it, I would totally go into either physical therapy or athletic training, or something to that effect. So I would love to know what drew you to physical therapy.
Yeah, that's a good question. And you're not alone. I have several friends, with degrees that they are totally on the left from. But I was the kid who wanted to be a doctor. I just wanted to be, it was just like, I'm going to be a doctor. I didn't know what kind. But for a while, probably middle school and high school, I said I was going to be a pediatrician. And you don't know this about me, but I'm the oldest of 7 children. And I was like always kind of like a mom and very organized and a planner, like my whole life. Like I'm raising that same child now. So it's very interesting. But I went to see my pediatrician when I was 16. And I was like, Mom, I'm going to ask him some questions about medical school. And she was like, okay. And we got in there, and my doctor was only in the room with me for 30 seconds. And I was so disappointed. So I was 16 years old. I left that appointment. The internet was very new, but I went and got on it, and I Googled medical field and sports, because at the time I was running cross country and dancing. And I'm like, I like athletic stuff. So let me see if I can combine the worlds. And I stumbled into sports medicine and then physical therapy. And I promise you, I decided that day that I was going to be a physical therapist. I chose my college based on that. And that's how I got there.
Wow. That singular path is kind of unusual,
It
but
is.
that's really fantastic, especially since it takes so much to be a physical therapist.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I would not have wanted to do all that.
You got really lucky with that.
Yeah.
Cross country is great, actually. That is something I grew up dancing and then went like the whole cheer pom route,
Yeah.
and never did formal running until I was an adult, and then found that I really loved it. And now one of my sons does cross country, so it's really fun to see that. And except for the super wet, stinky shoes, I cannot figure out how to get. I mean, those are like
there's no way
fill up the room stinky shoes, which apparently is.
They got to stay outside.
That's what he's finally started doing. But the problem is I live in Houston, Texas. And so the humidity is so oppressive here. They never fully dry. But I figure if they stay outside and then he wears them outside and then he comes, whatever, it's better that way.
Yeah. Just replace them regularly.
Yeah, no kidding. I was like, just make it through to the end of the season and I'll get you another pair. Like I'm not, replacement is definitely key before track starts and he gets into the more of the distance running there. Yeah. So you are kind of like me. You have an online presence of with a name that's not your real name. So I'm Graced Health, and so oftentimes people are like, "Oh, you're Graced Health. You're Healthy Fit." Yeah. Spelled PHIT. So I would love it if you would tell us a little bit about Healthy Fit, what you do there, and what your mission is.
Yeah, so Healthy Fit was created in 2013, and the idea was just to encourage optimal health and wellness for everyone. So I knew as a physical therapist, I'd be helping people with injuries and, aches and pains, but I also wanted to always have a wellness end to my business where I helped people, with just generalized things, fitness, balance, strength. And so I started it after working several contract jobs in the field and doing all sorts of settings, inpatient, outpatient, home care. I worked in the school system as a PT. So it was a great way to combine all of my experiences and, create my own practice to, help as many people as possible. And then really, I was having kids. So to create my own schedule so that I could still be a present mom and not be completely exhausted, all the time. And so I started that in 2013, and it's been a blessing. I mean, for about 4 years, I worked at my practice once or twice a week, and I worked for other people the rest of the week. And then in January of 2017, I went full time with my business, and I've never looked back. I mean, the pandemic, made things scary, and there have been some tough times in business, as you know, but I've been able to stay afloat. And that, of course, is, I would never negate the fact that I have a very supportive husband who, can make up the slack when things are rough here. So yeah, I love it. I love doing this, and it's been great to help people. And since I started the mom coaching side of the business about a year and a half ago, it's been so fulfilling to help moms who literally struggle with almost the exact same things that I've struggled with, everybody in different ways, but to see the changes that it makes for their overall well-being, the comfort that they get, like from, knowing that they're on a good, healthy path and creating positive habits for themselves and for their children. It's been super rewarding. So, I'm very happy where I am now.
Well, I love that. And I think it's such a great, it's just such a fantastic portion of the community to serve, because you take everything that you've ever done, and especially I'm thinking sort of the brand new mom who's just had her first, but also of the mom who's had, 3 kids in 5 years or whatever, because everything you ever knew pre-kids has just totally been turned upside down. I mean, everything. It's now we don't, for the nursing mom, it's like, okay, this was a great day because I could brush my teeth and shower. And that was, and that's it. Or, you're trying to teach your kids, it's so confusing and so hard and overwhelming about healthy lifestyles with children, but not going overboard on it and not creating not creating a problem. And then, oh, by the way, I need to take care of myself, and what I need is different than what my kids need. And it is so much. So I think that it's just this sliver. It feels like a sliver, but it's really so much more, because this is the other thing I'm learning. When your kids leave home, you're still a mom,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
And
you're still taking care of other people. So
yeah. Yeah.
I just think that this is a great focus. And I love what you're doing with all of that.
Thank you.
And there's so many things I could really dig in with you about what you do. But one of the things that you're really great about, particularly in the online space and on Instagram, is kind of where you and I connect on Instagram, but I know you're in other places.
Mm-hmm.
But your perspective on diets or diet culture and weight in our bodies. So I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about health at every size. There's just a lot of stuff out there. So
Mm-hmm.
first, if you could tell us what health at every size is and what it means.
Yeah. So health at every size is, it was a term that's been around for a while, but I think it was really coined and popularized by Dr. Lindo Bacon. And they have a book. It's called Health at Every Size, and it's really good. But it's essentially this new mindset. They call it like a peace movement. It's a peace movement to finally end the war on obesity and fat that we've been fighting, forever. And making peace, it's about making peace with your body, having real respect for yourself and your body and for others, expressing really compassionate self-care, and then thinking very critically and challenging, the research, and I do that with air quotes, that we see out there that suggests that fatness equals unhealthiness, or that fatness equals this long list of chronic diseases. And so it's been something that I was trying to practice years before I knew what health at every size was. And then once I came to understand it, and I read all the books and, did all the research and started curating a social media feed and a real life community of people who understood it and had done the work and seen it and experienced it in their own lives, like I have and so many others have, it's been beautiful, and I've been able to really relay it to people in a way that makes sense, because like I said, I've experienced the same things. What kind of draws you to health at every size for a lot of us is recognizing we've been on a diet wheel our whole lives, because our whole lives we've thought something was wrong with us, because diet culture will have you to believe that. And so I remember I started dieting at 12. So I was a child trying to manipulate and change my body,
Yeah.
simply because what the world and society told me was beautiful was not the way that I looked naturally. And I was a kid. So it's such a beautiful thing to recognize that,
Yeah.
like, body diversity is real, and we should be different. We're not all supposed to be a size 2, 0, 4, whatever, 10. Like, we're all supposed to look and be different. And being in a larger body does not necessarily mean that you are unhealthy, in the same way that being in a smaller body does not necessarily mean that you are healthy. And so the health at every size movement is all about debunking the myths, calling out the research, that is funded by the people who benefit from us thinking we're fat, and just let you know that you can adopt health behaviors. You can adopt health
Yeah.
behaviors without ever changing your body size or weight, and you can be healthy without ever changing your body size or weight.
Oh, I totally agree. And one of the things that you said a second ago was, having peace and respect for your body. And I think that there's this element out there as well, that we have forgotten about this opportunity to have peace and respect for our body. And when we don't, and it puts us in this heightened state of stress because we don't look like that 0 or 2 or 4 or 10 that you mentioned. Well, all that does is it creates a lot of unhealthiness on the inside. And I mean, one thing in particular I'm thinking of is, elevating that cortisol. And then what does the excess cortisol do? Well, that's, our body stores it because it can be broken down for energy later. And I mean, it's so compounding on itself. And I love too about how you say that just because you're in a smaller body doesn't mean that you're healthy either, because there are a lot of ways of being in smaller bodies. Some of them are very natural because you were just born with a smaller body and that's what your bone structure is and your muscles, and all of that. And some of them are really not optimal, to use to use your words, and using
No.
a lot of ways that
Mhm.
we were not intended to use, and not honoring to how we were created. So yeah, I totally agree with that. So you talk some about the science, and this is something I have to admit I am not fully educated on, because I do understand that there is some science behind health at every size. Can you share a few
Mhm.
pieces of evidence that supports this?
Yeah. So I don't have the exact articles, but I can direct you to haescommunity.org, HAES community, because they have a list of all the resources and references. And then in the book, Health at Every Size, Dr. Bacon breaks
Mhm.
them down lovely. Like you can get all the bits and pieces. So if you're very much into research, there are chunks in that book that like will have you, with your jaw dropped the whole time reading. But the general conclusion from, the research in there, it shows that intentional weight loss, literally for 95% of people who engage, none of them, 95% of them cannot maintain the weight loss. And that's beyond 1 or 2 years. They don't even have data for 5 years later because there's nobody left usually, either, submitting their information or, following through. So we've been telling people, even especially in the medical field, to lose weight for 50, 60 years now or more, and it's not helping. And really what it's doing is it's super counterproductive, because what the research also shows is that people who are in heavier bodies have a tendency to have dieted multiple times over the course of their lives. So what we get caught in is this cycle of restricting ourselves, not eating when we're hungry, eliminating entire food groups, being very strict, and we'll lose weight. I did it. I know tons of people who've done it. And then at some point, your body is
Mhm.
like, I can't do this anymore. Or your willpower, gives in, and you binge and you go back to eating all the things, because now these foods, because they've been restricted, are like your God. And so you have to have them. You have to sneak them. You have to binge on them. You have to have them. And then you go through that mental depression of, oh, I messed up. Oh, I suck. Oh, I'm horrible. And then you go back to restricting and putting yourself on another diet to make up for that. So, in the long term, those people typically result in having higher body weights, and then more issues, depression, disordered eating. So, all of the research actually backs the idea that just having a more friendly relationship with food and making exercise about joyful movement shows far better long term results than dieting and having a restrictive lifestyle and exercising for the purpose of weight loss. When we take weight out of the equation, health becomes far more attainable. And that's what most of the research is showing. And I would also like to argue that you can Google a research study right now that will tell you being fat makes you more likely to get heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and everything. But if you know anything about research, if you've taken, if you've done, doctorate level work, or even not, if you've just dug into the research, you have to understand there is a hierarchy to research. For research to be considered actually valid and for real conclusions to be drawn from it, it has to meet a lot of standards. And a lot of the research you see out there is not at the top of, like in school, this is what we did, rated research. Is it randomized? Is it controlled for all these different things? And a lot of these studies you see, as clickbait on the internet, they haven't. They don't even meet the highest level of research. And so they're drawing causal relationship conclusions from things that are just association. So yes, being in a larger body may be associated with diabetes or heart disease, but it's not causal. And one of my favorite Instagram accounts I follow, it's Dr. Natasha Larmy. She's Fat Doctor UK. She explained this like yesterday with the best example I've ever heard. So I'm going to share it, but absolutely giving credit to her. She said, you can write a research study to say that we've noticed a correlation between ice cream sales going up and murders going up. And you can be as silly as ever and say eating a lot of ice cream makes you want to murder people. That's not the case. What the case is it just turns out that when the weather is warmer, there's more ice cream sales. And also when the weather is warmer, there are more murders. So you have to understand that these causal relationships they're trying to make with some of the research you see, it's not actually a thing. There's just an association. But we're not considering weight stigma, fat phobia, genetics, depression. We don't consider any of those things. And if you're not controlling for those, you can't say being fat makes you this, being fat makes you have that. It's just not true.
Well, and I love what you said a second ago about when we take weight out of the equation, our health is attainable. And I want to pause there because I think that's super powerful. Because when we stop focusing on like here, I was joking, or I've joked around on my podcast recently. I don't remember which episode it was, but I was like, I am wearing my summer. I mean, I had a fun summer. I finally got to travel. Thank you, vaccinations. Like I had some fun,
Yeah.
and I'm wearing that a little bit. And, I'm at that point where it's like, okay, I can tell when I'm not feeling well, functioning well, but not focusing on that weight will make everything change, because then I'm focusing more again on the functionality of things, on the how am I feeling, how's my energy level, and all of that, which is a much better indication of health, not the number on the scale, because that can represent so many things. I mean, what time of the month is it? What, how much salt did I have? Have we have it alcohol? I mean, there's all of that. And then of course, and I understand that that's a little bit more in a more of a micro level, because they're, bigger bodies are not, I mean, it's now I'm kind of going off here, but it's, that's just my own personal story. But I think also, it also makes it a lot less intimidating too, because then doesn't matter what size your body you're in. If you start thinking about, okay, what is health to me? And without the size and without the scale and without the measurements, then we can feel a lot more successful.
Yes, I'm glad you said that. No, it makes a lot of sense. And that's where I start with most of my clients. We start there with what is health to you outside of weight and body size, and how do we achieve it? What do you want to be able to do? How do you want to feel? What are your goals outside of your body size and weight? And that is where we see the changes and the breakthrough, because here's the reality. And people don't like to hear this, and I don't mind saying it. There are people who will remain fat. Some of us will be fat. It's not a sin and it's not a bad thing. Some of us will be fat. That's just it. We have for so many years associated any gain in weight or any, fatness as being something unhealthy. But I know people who are fat in large bodies who can bench press me and all my children together, or who can twist and contort their bodies into a yoga pose that I could never do. So yes, there are so many other better sources of health than your body weight or size. Things like your strength, your flexibility, your balance, your endurance, all of that stuff supersedes your weight and your size. And then, of course, your blood work. Do you have high cholesterol, diabetes? Do you have, high blood pressure? Those are the things that we can affect change with, and our weight may not change. So it's really important to let go of this idea of being a certain number, and then recognize that your body should change over the course of your life, especially if you happen to be a woman who decides to have children or go through menopause or deal with stress, or like you said, having more drinks or more salt. Our bodies are supposed to change. We were never meant to just be the same our whole lives.
It's funny. I'm getting ready to release a book. And one of the things I say in there is like, I'm not the same person I was when I was 20, like in my head. And I'd like to think that I'm kind of a better person because I'm in particular less judgy. So why do I think that my body needs to be the same as when it was when I was 20? Like, we all evolve and grow. Hopefully we're all evolving and growing in a positive way, and everything's going to be changing as well. Yeah. Okay, so you work a lot with busy moms, like we talked about a little bit earlier. Why do you think it's important for moms in particular to understand the concept of health at every size?
That's such a great question. And that is why I do this, because moms, first of all, as you mentioned earlier, we're the centerpiece, like of the whole. Like, our spouses come to us, our children come to us, everyone looks to us for something. And then in many women's cases, outside of our home, we're the go-to. We may be the matriarch in the family. So the extended family comes to us. We might be, the boss at our jobs or running our own businesses or, senior level in our companies. So we are the go-to for so many things in life. And if we waste our energy, our precious energy and our time on always focusing in on the size and weight of our bodies, we're losing it. Like we're missing the point. We want to be here. We want to be around. We want to see our children grow up. We want to see them have children. We want to be there when they get married and graduate. And focusing on weight loss or maintaining a body size or a weight is counterproductive to you actually being healthy. And when we talk about health, we spend so much time on the aesthetics. What do I look like? What size pants do I wear? Oh my God, I've outgrown this. Oh no. And it's like, your health is so much more than your body. I always tell my clients, and I post this on my page all the time, you are more than a body. Okay? We have a whole mind in here, a whole spirit. The reason clones don't work? Because they're not God breathed. So we have other parts of our health that are equally as important to our overall well-being, and it's so important that we address all of it. It's not going to always be balanced, right? Sometimes other areas will take precedent over others. But if we're not addressing those and focusing on that as a whole, we're honing in on just this idea of being one size, which really isn't true health. Oftentimes we spiral into disordered eating, and then we set the example for our children that that's what's important. Now, I know I've been a mom for 10 years now. Kids don't always do what you tell them to do, but they almost always mimic what you do.
Yeah.
And either right then or later in life. So it's so important to establish healthy habits for them, because they come to you, they look to you for everything. And so I make it a point to, let my daughters see me, saying nice things about my body. If I outgrow a pair of pants, I'm like, all right, time to go shopping. It's a fun thing to me. It's not like this depressive moment where like, oh no, I love the pants. It's like, that is material. I was not made to fit it. It was made to fit me. If it doesn't fit, they have another size.
Wow, that's good.
As a mom, as a woman, you have to dissociate yourself from this idea that, first of all, my value is in my looks, my beauty, my body size, because that's a whole nother podcast. But really to set the example for your children and to show that same love and respect you don't want your kid in the mirror hating, that they have a fat roll. Like you don't want that. So if you don't want that for them, then you have to correct it for yourself. So that's why I spend my time with moms, because they can affect change globally.
Oh, amen to all of that. Yes. I mean, I just think about, the word that comes to mind when you talk about that is influence and just who we're influencing. And I would say too, I mean, our daughters, I have boys, but also what I want my sons picking up on, and what I don't want them having this expectation of a particular size body or how it looks, because this is the kind of stuff that they're seeing, this generation is seeing on Instagram. Like I'm like this, I'm getting off on a tangent here. So I don't want to do that. But what you're saying also completely, echoes what one of my, I had a therapist on, back in March of 2020, I think it was season 3. And it was, it was Christina Kismar. And she was saying that our children will notice they don't really care about what you say about them, but they care about what you say about yourself and other people, which I think is was really impactful to me. And I love too what you say. No, these clothes were made to fit me. That's such a blessing to give to your children, for them not to get hung up on what size am I. No, these are meant to make me look great in how I am. And I just, oh man, I just think that that's really, really powerful, really powerful. Okay. So I could pick your brain on all of this.
Yeah. That's a great way to see it as a gift.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Okay. So, one of the things that it's been fun to witness in my adult lifetime. So I'm 46. I grew up in the 80s, early 90s, fat-free craze, everybody's skinny, you're on watching VHS tapes with a whole lot of hairspray and, like all of that kind of stuff. And then starting in about 2004, and I think this is what started. This is not research, but Dove came out with their, Real Bodies campaign. It was 2004. And I know that because that was a research. And they really, to me, spearheaded just a campaign for accepting diversity in our body shapes, diversity in skin colors, diversity in height and size, and, like all of this kind of stuff. And I'm loving it. And now as an adult with, when I make purchases, I will very often intentionally choose to purchase from companies that are promoting all of these varying degrees of diversity. Now, having said that, I have received comments from smart, educated people who say things like, well, what are we now promoting obesity in athletic magazines? Are we now promoting obesity in this campaign or that campaign? I know what my response has been to that, but I would love to know what your response would be to that.
In my heart of hearts, it's not always the Christian response. So I will bite my tongue to say, first of all, to recognize in giving grace, as your podcast is called, recognizing that people who say these things are doing it from, no matter how smart or educated they are, they're doing it from a place of miseducation as it relates to health, fitness, and wellness. So first, recognizing that, like, they're not trying to be mean or jerks or whatever, but they're saying things based on what we've been taught. I mean, I'm 39, I'll be 40 this year. And yes, I grew up in the 80s as well. And it was all about being skinny and thin. And we, for so long, and to this very day, I have clients that I see that will go see their doctor. They'll get their labs done. They'll be like, oh, everything looks great. Cholesterol's perfect. You're doing it. Everything's perfect. But you really should lose a little weight. And they're like, wait, why? Like, what did I do? But it's because even medical doctors will tell you that being fat is going to predispose you to so many things. So please stay away from it. Don't do it. Don't be fat. So there's this urgency to never let your body gain weight, to always manipulate it. If that means, not eating when you're hungry, if that means drinking water instead of having food, if that means going on a diet and having replacement shakes, you'll do it because you believe that that is what health is. And we believe in, we're part of grind culture too, right? That idea that you got to work for it, you got to push for it, you got to do it. You sleep when you're dead, So it's this idea that, yeah, health is my personal responsibility. I'm looking this way and feeling this way because I do all the work, and that is why. And it's like, when we get to the Bible verse, the verse that I want to share talks about faith and works and how they're both important. And it's not about just doing the work. It's about recognizing that health is not like one thing. It's not one thing, and it doesn't look the same way for every person and everybody. So when I get those DMs all the time, this is promoting obesity, being fat is not healthy, you're crazy, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you know what? You can think that, and that's fine. I went to school for a very long time. I worked really hard. I learned a lot. And then I also educated myself beyond that, because I knew what I learned, there was something missing. And so I direct them to HAEScommunity.org, because I think it's a very beautiful place to start your journey toward health at every size and to understand what the real message is about. And I make funny reels about it, being sarcastic. People think health at every size means I don't work out, I sit on the couch and I eat potato chips and candy bars all day. That is not a form of self-care every day. Now, it may be one day or 2 days, fine, but that is not how you actually show your body compassionate self-care, by refusing to do positive health behaviors, but your positive health behavior might be going to the gym because you love it there and you get a great adrenaline rush. I may hate the gym. So my positive health behavior might be taking a walk around, my block slowly, taking in the air, the fresh air, and looking at the birds and speaking to my neighbors. Anything that can feed your body, your mind, and your soul, to me, that's a triple win. So it's about finding what works for you and your lifestyle. And it does not have to look like other people's. So it depends on the mood I'm in. If I'm going to educate them, if I'm going to send them a hashtag blocked and blessed, which I do like to do from time to time. Or if I'm going to try to point them in the right directions so that they can get the information that they need to make better decisions and to stop. Because to me, it comes off as bullying. It's like you can have your thoughts, but you don't have to message me and tell me, because you're not going to change my mind the same way I'm not necessarily going to change yours. So you have to pick your battles and decide who's worth it. Those spam accounts are not worth it. Those are the ones I do blocked and blessed, because I'm like, you're not even showing me who you are. So you're not really trying to have a thoughtful conversation.
Just picking on someone just to start a fight. Totally. I get that. Yeah, I totally get that. One of the things that you talked about on your, I think it was a reel, or it was, anyway, it was on your Instagram feed. So maybe it went over to another account as well, but some fat phobic comments. And I thought that those were those were interesting. Do you mind sharing a couple of those and how, and I want you to pick them, because I did prep you with this question, because sometimes when I put things out there, I'm a little bit more passionate about one thing other than the other. So I wanted to let you kind of drive that. And share a couple of them and tell them how we can reframe those statements that we may be saying about ourselves.
Yes. And thank you for this question. And I like this post. So yeah, I had a lot. One of them was, I've really got to get this body together. And I like this one because it's subtle. It's not like you're saying something horrible, but it's still making the assumption or the assertion that there is something wrong with my body and I have to fix it. So I like to reframe everything to more of a feeling statement, I guess. So maybe something like, you know what, I'm not feeling my best. I'm not feeling as energetic or as mobile. Or maybe I'm having trouble with some of the things, being more specific. I'm having trouble touching my toes lately, or I'm having trouble with something that was important to me. So, maybe there's something that I can do to address that. Maybe instead of focusing on, whatever size or weight I am, I can make some decisions about what to do to maybe make things better for me or easier for me. So focusing in on that. Another one, and we excuse our bodies to people all the time. So another one of the statements I had was, excuse my muffin top, that little extra fat hanging over the pants. And really reframing that is to just say nothing, because you don't have to apologize or justify your body. You know what I mean? There's no need for it. It's not anybody's business where you have fat, where you don't have fat, and you don't even have to acknowledge it. Wear the clothes that you want, that you feel flattered in and comfortable in, and just live your life, and don't spend your energy focusing on, what other people might think about you. Because half the time, there are trolls, right? We know there are mean people out there waiting to say something, but 90% of those people are on social media. In real life, people are typically not even brave enough to say anything like that. And they're so focused on their own insecurities that they're probably not looking for yours. So, just letting that go and replacing that with silence.
I totally agree with that. And going back to what we were talking about earlier with, excuse the muffin top, or, wait, and I'm guilty of this too. Like, let me suck in my gut, or, that kind of stuff. Going back to, how is that influencing the people around you? And, if you're a mom, your children, or, you never know. It might be the person who's just passing by and then be like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to have a muffin top, or I'm not supposed to, I'm supposed to suck in my gut when I take pictures. And so I think too, it's, how does that extend beyond the words that you're saying? So I totally agree with that. Let's move to, I would love to hear any suggestions you may have on how we can check our bias. And sometimes that is conscious bias, and sometimes that's subconscious bias with regard to larger bodies, which is a really big question, I know. But do you have any suggestions, or maybe like, when you think this, turn it around and think that, or anything like that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. And it is a big question, but there's some actionable things that you can do. Like I said earlier, if you grew up when we grew up, and even, now, if you've had that influence in your life, because we created this community. So we may have seen it on television. We may have been influenced by movies, music videos. We might have heard our parents say things. We might have had someone in the family who was larger and saw the treatment that they got. So it's just like when there was a study they did where they asked people like, who would want to be black, considering the racial stigma and the injustices, and nobody raised their hand. Nobody volunteers for that. It's the same thing with fat and being in a larger body. Nobody volunteers
Yeah.
for that because we know that you are treated differently when you're in a larger body and by anybody. And it's not always mean, but it's different. We know that there's, even in movies, the heavier set person is the best friend, the fat best friend, the sidekick, never the star, never the love interest. So we've seen it our whole lives. So to combat that and change, our thinking around that, we have to start normalizing larger bodies. So I start very basic: curate your social media feed. Just like you said, you go and you try to purchase products that are encouraging diversity in size and skin color and height and all of that.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Make your social media feed, because that's something you have full control over. You can unfollow, mute, silence, and make it something where you can see larger bodies all the time. If you happen to be in a larger body and you still have these biases, because we do, you need to look at your body more often. I tell my moms, they always think I'm crazy, but I'm like, you need to get in the mirror naked. You need to look at yourself, because I've had patients come right here in my clinic, stand in front of this big mirror, just fully clothed, doing exercises, and won't look at themselves. They don't like what they see, so they avoid the mirror. You know what? You got to face your fears. You have to look at yourself and normalize this and recognize that this is a normal, healthy body. Like, there's nothing wrong with you for being in this body. Okay. And yes, as you make health behaviors, you might change your body or you might not. And you need to be content with either or, because you can't really control it unless you're willing to A, have surgery, or B, participate in disordered eating habits. And I don't recommend either. So, so the first step is normalizing larger bodies, seeing your body, and check yourself and make when you see that, when you have like a social media feed or you're engaging with people in larger bodies, you can see very easily that, wow, they can do this. Wow, they can do that. Like, she's a runner. And it just debunks all of those silly myths you've been thinking your whole life, because now you're seeing someone in a larger body do the things that you thought only thin people could do or only muscular people could do. And it's like, girl, no, like, listen, thin people don't have the market cornered on healthy. It's just what diet culture would have you to believe. But healthy can look different for everybody. So that's probably my biggest tip, is normalize seeing larger bodies just in general, seeing your body in general, and then normalize seeing larger bodies in health settings. And so sometimes if you're in a position where, maybe you're responsible for the face of a company or a fitness brand, it's very important that you start to center people in larger bodies, because it needs to be known that they are healthy too, that they participate in health behaviors as well. So, like I know, when some people that are naturally thin or thin because they've worked really hard to stay that way, even in the marketing stuff, they're still airbrushed, they're still nipped and tucked. There's almost no perfect, you know what I mean? And so the sooner you recognize that there's no such thing, there is no standard, there is no perfect. So I don't believe in like, oh, all my flaws. No, these are just differences from me to another person. There are no flaws, because we're all created in this image and we're all absolutely, totally fine. We don't have to change one thing about ourselves ever.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, one of the things, so when you're talking about curating the social feed, do you know Myrna Valerio? Do you know who she is?
No, I don't.
Okay. You got to go follow her. She's incredible. So I met her as we were both ambassadors to Skirt Sports, which is an incredible company. It has switched since hands, but the new owner is so fantastic about just doing the same promotion of diversity and inclusivity and all of that the original owner, Nicole DeBoom, did. But Myrna she got her start with a blog called Fat Girl Running. And she is a self-proclaimed, larger body girl. And she has moved into a full-time influencer role, and she's in a bigger body and does really incredible things. So if people are looking for someone to follow, I always recommend her, because I think she's such a great example of health at any size and being able to do things. And she had a health scare. So what's interesting is she had a big health scare probably about 17-ish years ago when her son was a baby and made a lot of lifestyle changes, and her body just settled into the size that she's in now, which is still considered a bigger body. But everything, like, from a health perspective, all of her labs and numbers and blood pressure and, all of that kind of stuff is really great. So if someone's looking like, where can I even go? She's a really great one to start with. Go check her out. You'll be super impressed.
Thank
Super
you. Yes,
impressed.
I will.
The other thing too that I think is really great about seeing larger bodies is it also allows people who are in larger bodies to see, oh, this can be done. Oh, bigger bodies can work out. Oh, there is a size that's meant for me that I won't be ashamed to show up in the gym wearing. Okay, I have some questions that I ask all of my guests. One of them is, I am fascinated by tattoos. I don't have any, but I have discovered that people, whenever they choose to put body art on themselves, often, not always, but often they have a story that goes behind it. So I was wondering if you had any tattoos, and if you do, if you would mind sharing the meaning behind one of them, if you have more than one. And if you don't, then if you had to get one, what would it be and where would it go?
Well, I too am fascinated with tattoos, and I have several. I have one, two, three, four. I have five, I believe. And I'm going to get more. I love them. I think, I don't know, body art is just so cool to me. So I have a few. I have one, like my husband and I have our anniversary tattooed on our fingers. So I have that, and my sisters and I have a sister tattoo here. But probably one of my most meaningful ones is on my rib cage, the left side of my ribs. It's just all cursive writing, but I have it says beloved. No, it says noble, admirable, and beloved. And those are the meanings behind my three kids' names. So that one means a lot to me. I love it. I wanted to put it on my trunk because obviously that's where I carried them. So that's one of my favorite tattoos. And being in the Health at Every Size community has been interesting because when I got it, I didn't have quite as much flesh over there. So it looks a little different now, but I still think it's really, really beautiful. And
Oh,
I love it. I'm like you. I love body art tattoos. I think it's just a cool thing.
yeah. Oh, I love that. The meaning of their names on your trunk. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay, do you have a meaningful Bible verse that you would
Thank
like to
you.
share with us?
Yep. So I have a couple that like one of my email signatures is without faith it is impossible to please God. But one of my favorite ones is James 2:26, and it's just faith without works is dead. And it's essentially, for me, I believe in the balance of the two, or the harmony between the two. You can pray for some things and really try to just, you can fast, whatever, get on your knees every day, meditate on it, but you also have to do your part, and recognizing that there's certain things you can control and certain things you cannot, and kind of giving in to God's will for your life. So I love that scripture, faith without works is dead.
That is great. I love the book of James. Boy, I did a Beth Moore study on James, and it was just, it's fantastic. Super good. Okay, so how can people connect with you?
My website obviously is healthyfit.com, and fit is spelled PHIT. So you can find me there. But my favorite place, believe it or not, is Instagram. I've curated a feed on Instagram that brings me joy and doesn't stress me out when I scroll through it. So follow me on Instagram at healthyfit. And then if you happen to be a mom, I am on the Peanut app. It's like Clubhouse, but it's only for moms. And I host chats on there every other Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this has been the best community I have ever encountered of moms, because everyone is so open and engaging and vulnerable and kind. And it's been so cool. So I have a group on there called Busy Moms. And like I said, I host the pods every other week, which has been super, super amazing. So those are probably my primary places. I'm on everything else. I'm on Pinterest and Twitter and Facebook, but I don't engage on those sites as much. So
Yeah, yeah, you kind of have to find one place and just focus there, because it's just exhausting and way too much. I mean, it's like a full-time job keeping up with all the socials. So
mhm.
I totally get that. And tell everybody about your book too, because that looks just like a fantastic resource for busy moms.
Thank you. Yes. So my book, and I rarely promote it now simply because when I wrote it in 2018, I had not had all my formal education on health at every size. So I still feel like there's hints of diet culture in this book, but still some really, really great resources and suggestions and tips. So it's called Healthy Made Easy. The Ultimate Wellness Guide for Busy Moms. And you can actually purchase it directly through my website, so healthyfit.com. But it's on Amazon and everywhere else books are sold as well. So.
Okay, great. That's one thing that I hear a lot from my community. They're like, it's so overwhelming, and I don't know, and the food prep and the working out, and then by the way, doing all of the other things that I do. So that seems like a really great resource. Dr. Lisa, I'm so thankful that for you to come on. I have to tell you, this is just like one of the best things about podcasting is just getting the opportunity to talk to new people and to learn. And it's the best non-paying job I've ever had. So thank you for coming on.
I love that. I love that. You are so welcome. And I agree with you. I have truly enjoyed being on podcasts. It's been so fun to meet people. I have no bandwidth to create my own because people have suggested it, but I'm like, I'll just be a guest on as many as I can because I love it. And you guys are rock stars for doing this, taking time out of your lives to listen to people, record all the correspondence you send, editing, like, hats off to you because that's a lot of work, and I'm glad that you guys do it.
Well, and I will have to say I'm super grateful for people like you who are willing to come on. So thank you for that. It really is a blessing to me because I certainly I may act like a know-it-all sometimes, but I'm definitely not. I do not know it all. So it's great to have educated, passionate people like you to come on and help enhance my community and me, if nothing else. So thank you so much, Dr. Lisa.
Thank you. You are welcome. Thank you.
Changing the way we think about our health takes time. And my experience that it can be easier to apply that to others and recognize the health in them rather than seeing myself in that lens. But I hope this conversation helps to shift that perspective if you're struggling with that as well, and help you recognize the health in your own amazing body. Dr. Lisa can help you do that. So make sure you connect with her on Instagram at HealthyFit. That's HealthyPhit, and check out her course, Help Me Find My Healthy. The link is in the show notes, as is the link to all of her socials. As a side note, like I said, this is a chapter in my new book. Each chapter in this book breaks a quote unquote rule that we have learned either from the health industry or diet culture or maybe other people or even ourselves. So in this chapter, we break the rule, I can tell you're healthy by looking at you. And we dig into many of the metrics that we should be looking at instead of just looking to our body size. Speaking of my book, don't forget to head over to yourworthybody.com to sign up to be notified of the release, unless you're listening to this after November 2021, and then you can just go purchase it on Amazon. Also, if this show is valuable to you, would you offer some value to me? Super simple, no money involved. Just rate and review the show, or share it with a friend on social media, or just grab a screenshot, or just send the episode to your friend. Any of those are so helpful and very much appreciated. Each episode, I try to give you one simple thing to remember out of the whole conversation that we have had. So today's is something you probably already can figure out, but it is health truly does come in all sizes. If you are moving your body in a way that brings you joy, eating primarily the foods God put on this earth, and are able to do what you're called to do, you are probably living out your health no matter what size your body is. Okay, that is all for today. Go out there and have a great day.